Milo, is that you?
There, I think I got it. Sorry.
Yeah, that's great. I hit the record button, the big light goes on, and then you start talking.
I'm sorry. Okay, I'll shut up now.
You're not coming on here to sabotage our little podcast, are you? Because you're an up and coming YouTube model railroading YouTube sensation.
You got to neutralize the competition.
The voice you hear is Ron Marsh, who everybody in the model railroading world knows from Ron's Trains and Things. And you now have 9,000 subscribers on your YouTube channel.
18,955 as of this moment.
All right, okay, 18th. So you're closing in on 19,000.
Yes.
So what I'm going to do when you hit 19, I'm going to unsubscribe.
And then resubscribe so you can win the prize for being number 19.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, is there a prize for 20,000?
You and about 12,000 others.
Yeah, exactly. And isn't it about time for another one of those Ron's Trains and Things, make your own video and all that, and weather your models and all that stuff?
That will be coming up sometime in the winter of 2020.
When was it? Like so it's like in the spring or like February, January, February.
January through March.
Okay.
Yeah.
And the video has to be a minimum of an hour.
Not if you want me to watch it.
And this will be your third year you're doing it.
That's correct. It will be.
Oh yeah, and that's right. I said I would give a prize, didn't I?
Well, you did say that, so we'll see how that works out.
And I said I would give. I think I said I would give like a $50 gift certificate from Midwest Model Rare. That guy in Kansas City that with his dad.
Yeah.
You know the guy. He's because his full-time job, isn't he the star of the Broadway smash hit Hamilton or something?
I heard that. That's a rumor that's going around.
Yeah, I know he works on because you were talking to him when he was at the Grammys or something.
Yeah, I believe that was the Tonys, but one of those.
Hey, you know what? We should start our own podcast award. It's called The Linies.
The Linies.
Well, I think we just hit on an idea there, Bruce.
That's a sweet idea.
That's some sort of an idea. Okay.
Yeah, it's an idea.
Yeah, it's some sort of an idea. I can't believe anybody's listening to this. Okay, so the reason we're here tonight is because Stephen Atwell is actually here. Say hey, Steve.
Hey, Steve.
And we want to talk. I don't think this is necessarily going to be an interview. I think lately I've been trying to talk to more people and maybe doing a shorter time, but I kind of let it go, and sometimes it ends up being an hour and a half, sometimes it doesn't. But the reason primarily that we want to talk, Stephen is the primary reason we are here. Steve Atwell. And did I get that right? Are you the star of the Broadway hit smash musical Hamilton?
Oh, yes. Lots of singing and dancing.
You do work on Broadway.
I do work on Broadway.
And you're the director.
Lighting.
Lighting. Exactly. What play are you working on right now?
I'm working on an Out of Town for Almost Famous.
Okay. So that's the play, or You're Almost Famous?
It's a movie based on that movie from early 2000s, late 90s, whenever that was.
Yeah, I bet that gets old in a hurry. You tell people Almost Famous, and then they make some kind of smart aleck remark about Almost Famous. So anyways, and you know what? I'm going to be completely honest here. I can never... Is it Midwest Model Railroad Supply or Midwest Model Railroaders or Midwest? What exactly is it?
Midwest Model Railroad.
Midwest Model Railroad. So I was kind of close.
Yeah.
And the reason we're going to have this discussion, we have Stephen Atwell, of course, are you in New York City? Where are you right this minute? Are you in New York City?
I am currently at home in New York City.
Okay. And do you live on Broadway?
I live a block off of Broadway.
Do you really?
Yeah.
Well, that's cool. So, like,
nowhere near Midtown, but a block off of Broadway.
Okay, because Broadway runs from and to where? Because we got before we go ahead, Stephen, I apologize. We're going to practice podcasting one day so we get better at it. But we have people all over the world that listen to us, so I try to, as much as possible, paint a word picture of like exactly. So where does Broadway run from and to in Manhattan?
It runs right down the middle of Manhattan from almost all the way to the south tip to all the way to the top of Manhattan Island.
Right, and so then and the actual Great White Way, where all the plays are like a third of the way up from the tip of Manhattan. Is that about right?
Yeah, they're 40th Street, 51st Street, 52nd Street.
So where do you live in relationship to that?
178th.
Okay. So some sort of like, is it a penthouse suite kind of thing? Like, or
it is not your standard New York City apartment. We came all the way up here because we get a little more space. So it's like a 950 square foot 2-bedroom apartment.
Oh, cool. So how long does it take you to get down? Do you just jump on a bus? You ride a bike? What do you do?
I walk downstairs and get on the subway, and it takes me for an 8 o'clock call. I'll generally leave here about 7, and most days I'll get in the building about 7:35 to 7:40. So
subways go fast. And our buddy Dave Barraza, who works, I can't remember, Dave, exactly what, I know it's a derivative of the Union Signal and Switch Company. He designed signal systems for New York Transit Authority. So what train is it you're taking?
I take the A train.
That's what I was going to say, but I didn't.
Yeah, and now I've got two songs where you take the A Train and then George Benson on Broadway.
I know, exactly. Thanks very much, Stephen. Okay, well, I guess that's good.
So we have intro and outro music.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't even know what this is. This might end up being an interview because I've managed to kill 7 minutes so far.
Well, it's more like a bunch of guys sitting around the kitchen table conversing.
Yeah, and don't everybody remember to turn off their phones. And you know why I just reminded you to turn off your phone?
Because you got to turn off yours.
Yeah.
Do as I say, not as
I do. Exactly. Okay, so and we have Ron Marsh of Ron's Trains and Things. And Ron, tell us a little bit about what's happening at Ron's Trains and Things at this moment, keeping in mind that this may not be broadcast until the year 2020.
Okay, well, at this moment, somewhere in the middle of 2019, I took 2 weeks off that turned into about 4 months for personal and work reasons, but we've gotten kind of back at the video making thing, and fortunately, the videos I already had made, did well during that time, and the channel continued to grow, and we're looking at we're bumping 19,000 subscribers right now, and still kind of hoping to maybe hit 25 by early 2020, and got a lot of exciting things coming up, including a video that I've been planning and haven't gotten done yet, but I'm actually working on right away that includes a little cameo at, of all places, Midwest Model Railroad at a visit that I made there, and some things that I picked up a little while back. So, Stephen, I haven't forgotten you. Still got it. So,
okay. And do you really think you'll hit like another 5,000 or 6,000 subscribers by the middle of winter 2020 kind of thing?
Yeah, I think so. It had kind of been my goal, my kind of personal goal, to hit 25,000 by the end of the year. That was before I had 4 months off, and so I'm a little behind that goal now. But yeah, I honestly think it's very doable to think by February or mid-February to be looking at 25,000 subscribers.
Wow,
that's awesome. So somehow, Stephen, how did you and I end up talking? I forget.
Recently?
Yeah, how did we end up coming up with this idea to talk?
we had the news segment that hit the local news in Kansas City.
Right, exactly, about the store. Because the heart of what I think this discussion should be is the fact that you and your dad and your mom started this as a strictly a mail order thing, and now you guys have opened a brick and mortar store. And Ron, I thought you'd be perfect to fit in because your YouTube channel continues to grow. And you sent me a graph showing me that a large portion of the people that listen to it are between the ages of...
I believe that showed them to be, 17 to 35? Was that right?
Yeah, something like that, yeah. And then we have Bruce, the moderately agitated mail boy here, because I try not to do anything without Bruce, the moderately agitated mail boy.
Yeah, we got to kind of keep an eye on him to keep him on the straight and narrow.
Yeah, exactly. Although today I was in your office in about...
You were poking me with a hockey stick in my office, yes.
Yeah. This is the kind of life that Bruce and I live, because he was working on making a vector for me, although I do have William Sampson to help me with that. And
okay. I did figure it out, by the way.
Good for you. And whenever I'm in there and Bruce is trying to do something for me, he has a hockey stick in there, and I try to poke him with it. So yeah, Stephen, I think the main reason we should have this discussion is try to get some sort of insight into how the hobby's growing and what it was that you and your dad... Is it mostly you and your dad, or you and your dad and your mom, or...
It's mostly my father and I. My mom comes in on Saturdays to the shop for a few hours each time, and some evenings. And then our fantastic employee, John Percy.
Okay, so you do have an employee, so your dad's not tied to the shop.
Correct.
Okay. So what was the process? Like, when did you guys actually start the Midwest Model Railroad?
We officially started in June 2011.
Okay. And why did you start?
It actually all started because we my father was in HO scale when I was a kid. That went away in like fourth grade. When I was in fourth grade, the trains went away. When I got to college, I went into in scale, and my father had taken interest in trains again, but there was no layout of the house, and I tried and convinced him that in scale would be the better way to go since he was trying to build a bedroom layout.
Right.
And we started shopping around Kansas City for parts and whatnot, and we couldn't find really anywhere that any of the in-scale stuff we wanted. Everything was small sections. And then we'd go online, and even to get the in-scale parts we wanted, we'd have to go to 5 or 6 different shops and get 1 or 2 pieces at each one. And so there's got to be some better way. And so we reached out to manufacturers to see if we could be the better way. And off we went. We started as an in-scale parts shop.
And strictly mail order.
Strictly mail order.
And from the and obviously, I'm guessing it probably was what are the words I'm looking for? It was more of a success than you expected pretty quickly.
I would not say pretty quickly. I think the first couple years there was a lot of trial and error to figure out what exactly we were and how exactly we were going to do it, especially with myself traveling most of the time. Space requirements every time we wanted to add something new, because we were in the basement of the house for the first 7 years. So every time we wanted to add something new, we needed to make sure we had space for it. There was a lot of give and take as far as growing versus not growing, or trying to gain customers and how much funds we'd put towards trying to gain customers versus reinvesting in the company for inventory growth. But I would say really in the last 4 years is when we have settled on like, I think we finally figured this out. And it's been growing very consistently since then.
But it must have, even in the early days, felt like it was worthwhile to keep going.
Yeah. And it's funny, there's a lot of times where I'll look at our numbers or look how much stuff is coming in and think back to years ago with the way we would do things and think, wow, if we didn't get better, we would never be like, we would have to have so many more employees to deal with just the small stuff because of it. We kept looking at efficiencies, where we could find efficiencies to make ourselves better, to keep our prices as low as possible.
Yeah, and I mean, you're pretty much flying blind, right? Because it wasn't like you had 2 or 3 close friends that had model railroad businesses that you could pick their brain or anything. You kind of had to learn you had to learn the retail business kind of on your own, I'm assuming.
Yeah, that no one in my family or extended family that I know of works in the retail industry. When I was in high school, I worked retail, but that was not, I showed up to work, I rang some stuff up, I went home. The retail industry was a completely new industry from anything that I had touched before. And it was an experience.
I'll bet. Ron, Bruce obviously knows this, and Ron, I'm pretty sure you already know it, but if you have any questions or anything, just jump right in.
Yeah. I was going to ask a question.
I'm sorry we don't have time.
Okay. Our email address is...
Yeah.
Oh, sorry. Not then? Okay.
Yeah.
I'll come back later.
No, whatever.
Well, I was thinking when you decided you wanted to start your own business, how did you decide on, whose products you're going to carry, what products you're going to carry, and how much and things like that? Like, you must have had an idea that there's some sort of market out there for some things, but, what was the thought process into picking your suppliers and lines and that type of thing?
As far as lines went, we tried to, first we reached out to most of the ones that were nearby us. So we reached out to Blair Line, we reached out to Woodland Scenics, we reached out to Laser Kit. We reached out to the ones that we knew were in close proximity to us, just so that we had the local brands. And then finding a distributor was our next goal. And we found our distributor, it's a company called Heartland up in Nebraska. And from there, we could kind of pick and choose the brands out of their catalog, out of what all they had in store or in warehouse.
Bruce, you're kind of breathing into your mic there, buddy. You're so excited about the question.
I'm sorry.
Don't be sorry. I don't feel like I have to. I feel like I don't have to be careful. I can easily tell you that because we're both interested in making sure the viewers have the best possible experience. So what was the name of the distributor again?
Heartland.
Okay. And whereabouts are they located?
Lincoln, Nebraska.
Okay. And was there a catalog you could thumb through to go through, try this distributor? Like, how did you even know where to look for a distributor?
We eventually came across some of the manufacturers' websites, and it was mostly actually overseas manufacturer that said, our U.S. distributor is.
Okay.
And then started searching for contact details that way.
Okay. So eventually you settled on these guys because they were relatively anxious to work with you or interested in what you guys wanted to do?
I think at that point it was just more willing to work with us.
Right. Okay.
A lot of them have stipulations on exactly how much you need to get first order, how big your space needs to be, where your space needs to be. Open out, like there's just so many rules about all these a lot of these distributors have, and Heartland and a couple others actually said, yeah, we'll take on an e-tailer, that's fine.
Cool. So it's a fascinating story. It really truly is. I mean, Ron, when did you meet Stephen?
Stephen and I got connected virtually, online, through Eric Hall, who has a YouTube channel, Model Railroad YouTube channel, IMRRO.com. And when my YouTube channel got started, it got started through a contest that Eric had put on through his channel. And then when I sponsored my first Down and Dirty Weathering contest and was looking for a sponsor for the prizes, Eric said, hey, let me get you in contact with this Stephen guy that I know of Midwest Model Railroad. And Midwest Model Railroad was is it correct to say, Stephen, a sponsor of Eric's channel? Is that the right terminology I'm using there?
Yeah.
Was connected to his channel. So anyway, so he connected Stephen and I, and he sponsored the contest, both of the first two seasons of the contest. And so we met, virtually, started communicating through texting means that way. As far as actually meeting in person, we met last year at the NMRA convention in Kansas City. Also had the connection there, the fact that Stephen works on Broadway, and my daughter was a theater major finishing up her degree, and so she was kind of interested in meeting Stephen as well. So we all sat down and had breakfast together the first time that we met, and I'm also glad to be able to say that I was able to see the store when it was still in the basement of Stephen's dad's house before they moved to the brick and mortar. So I got to see kind of what it looked like before the move and after as well. And it was a pretty impressive venture in the basement, before they moved. Much more so now, of course, with the store in place there.
Yeah, I guess as we go through this process, Stephen and Ron and Bruce, I guess with I'm not sure what the right questions are to ask, and I don't want to just dash right through the process, but I guess, if there's so much hand-wringing nowadays about, the hobby is dying and all the stores are closing, you guys have opened the store, which is, apparently swimming upstream against what apparently so many people think is happening. So that's why I'm kind of interested in, starting from the beginning and then, kind of working our way through it. So you guys, like I'm guessing in 2012, 2013, you must have had a relatively positive response from people to buy, to order off you guys.
Yeah, we had to. We sell through a couple of the marketplaces, eBay and Amazon, and for a long time that was actually the majority of our sales.
Right.
Just because, as far as advertising goes, we have to pay them 10% of pretty much all sales.
Yeah.
So our prices are different based on which marketplace it's sold on. But as far as advertising goes, it's really difficult to say, I don't want to sell on eBay because we got to mark up the price, when that, it reaches out to however many millions of people shop on eBay every single day.
Yeah. Okay. So what would you say was the next major turning point when you got, like you open the store in 2000, or you open up in 2011, you find a distributor, like what would be the next thing you remember through the process? Because we're talking 8 years now. What do you remember kind of as a defining moment next?
It's interesting. I don't really know that there was any like big aha moments or steps forward, or it was very, very much learning to crawl and then learning to walk, and then small gains all the way across. There's a couple YouTubers. Eric Hall was one of them. Derek Glass was another one that we got in contact with early. And I actually got in contact with them through, I ran a YouTube channel for our store for a while, doing scratch builds and some other stuff, and got in contact through them and started working together on a lot of projects to get our name out more. And there was definitely a clear positive momentum there from that type of collaborative advertising versus just a Google type advertising, because it reaches people more individually.
Right. So it actually made a difference to work with a few YouTubers, and that actually had an impact.
Yeah.
And because I hear some of those YouTube guys are, pretty impressed with themselves.
We are.
Like, Ron, don't you find this fascinating? Like, I just find this like endlessly fascinating. I know you and I talk constantly, or a lot, not constantly, but we do talk a lot about, what's the impact of social media and, the excitement of your channel growing. I mean, don't you find that? I wish I knew what the right questions to ask were, because I find this fascinating that, in 8 years, when all the traffic's going one way down the highway, these guys are going the other way, and swimming upstream basically.
Yeah, well, and I think one of the things that, of course, I'm sure Stephen, I think, will agree with this. I think one of the things that's been huge for them was the fact that they started almost opposite the way traditionally your model railroad shop, your hobby shop would have started. For years you had a brick and mortar store, and then maybe we'll sell some stuff online to see if we can do anything with this internet thing. Midwest Model Railroad started online, still primarily an online business, but got into a brick and mortar store. I think, Stephen, wouldn't it be correct to say that you first started looking at that store just because you needed more space?
Yeah, we always had in our mind that we actually wanted to open a brick and mortar prior to the NMRA Kansas City convention.
Mm-hmm.
We missed that goal, but not by much. It was actually 6 months later that we signed a lease on the place we're in now. But it was actually interesting. At the end of 2018, we had a conference call between my father, my mother, and myself. I was in New York doing shows, and they were at home. And we had just gotten a shipment of. We had just picked up a new brand and added a new line added a new line to the store. And during this conference call, I said, "All right, so in January, I think we're going to add." And my father said, "Well, we can't." I said, "Why can't we?" And he said, "I don't even have space for the last thing we added. It's still sitting in bins on the couch." And I said, "Okay, well then we need to move." And there was silence on the other end of the phone. I think I actually had to say, "Hello, I lose you."
Anybody there?
They said, "Okay, when do you think?" And I said, "Well, if we can't add stuff to the store, we need to move now. I'll start looking for property, but if we're not going to hold, we're not going to stop growing. As far as I'm concerned, if we're comfortable where we are and we just decide to stop growing, we might as well close up shop and leave. Like, I'm not interested in just. I don't think I'm interested in running a company that's just sort of treading water somewhere in the middle. If we're comfortable with where it is, I don't think we're at a spot where we should be comfortable where it is." And so I started looking for real estate online in the most strange way I've ever thought of anybody would look for real estate. Found a place, and we moved in February and started outfitting, and I think we moved the shop in 1st of March.
Yeah, I think that's probably my biggest. While you were talking there, I was thinking, I'm looking at your website, and there's Monroe Models weathering washers, and something you said there just clicked with me, and it's like, I feel like, and I think maybe this Ron is a better way to describe the conversations we have. Like, when you said you ordered something else, and your dad said, "Well, we got no room; it's just sitting on the bin." Like, I feel like this hobby is like, I never would have imagined this podcast would have been like I have literally, I've said this to Bruce several times. I'm lost now because there's like way too many people to talk to. There's way too much stuff to talk about. It's like if I do 2 podcasts a week, I'm very proud of my consistency. I put that out, but it's like, oh my goodness gracious. It's like, this wasn't the hobby I've been in the last 40 years. Like, what? It's this big. It's this huge. Like, and it seems the same thing for you guys. It's like your store just grew and grew. And sure, okay, like, you have to be good at it. You have to be, you have to excel. You have to be well organized and stuff like that. But you must at some point kind of shook your head and kind of going, holy cow.
It's actually really funny. I've tried to make it back to Kansas City as much as possible, but for a few years there, I was lucky to get back the one time a year that I did for about a week at a time. And I would walk into the basement where the store was, and every time I'd be like, "Oh my God, like this is insane. There's so much stuff shoved in this small space." Because we moved when we moved into the store is at least double the space of what we had previous, and it's still relatively full. Everything was just packed into this small space, and every time I'd walk in there, there'd just be more. So it made sense that he told me, stop. We're literally busting at the seams here. But yeah, every time I got there, I was just in shock of what all we have and what,
Yeah. And what about keeping track of inventory and all that stuff? Like, there's a million questions to ask you because, you're easy to talk to and it's fun to talk to you. But I mean, like you had to learn how to keep track of inventory. You had to learn, and you've got to, I think you've kind of redone your website if I, in the last not too long distant future, have you not? Like, it seems pretty sharp now. Not that it didn't before, but.
I revamped the homepage, I think earlier this year.
Right.
Earlier 2019. It got a new, the bones of the website's still the same. The search functions are all still there. We've added some search things for people to be able to search by road name now so that they can look for things if they're looking for specific road names. But yeah, all the bones are still the same. We've gotten a lot of really positive feedback on our website because it's, at least, I mean, for me and a lot of people that I've spoken to, substantially easier to search and to get around than most model railroad websites.
Right.
But yeah, the front page got a facelift earlier in 2019.
Yeah, like that's kind of what with the podcast, I thought, there's a lot of extras I could do, but I promised myself the number one thing I would concentrate on is getting the podcast out twice a week on schedule. And, from there, and it kind of grows from there. And that's like your website is very, very easy to navigate and it's easy to follow. And that's what people want. You don't need a lot of bells and whistles. You just need.
Yeah, I'm clicking through it right now. I'm amazed at the stuff he has on it.
I know.
And, and I think this is a discussion you and I have had, Lionel, is that this hobby is way bigger than anybody thinks it is. And I think what the success of Midwest Model Railroad has been is that they've realized that too. I was saying, holy cow, there's tons of people out there who want to buy stuff from us, and that's a good thing.
Yeah, like I think I actually am going to take full credit for this. I actually believe I'm the one that has realized that Al Gore invented the internet specifically for model railroading.
Absolutely.
Because he's probably was a closet model railroader and he wanted a way to bring everybody together, so he invented the internet. I'm convinced of that. Stephen, I'm gonna get this information out of you if it kills me, because I think this is just a fabulous story of am I wrong? I mean, do we not have tons of hand wringing of, oh my God, we're losing all the hobby shops and everything, and here these guys have opened a hobby shop. I would say you should put more pictures of your hobby shop on your website. I would love to see more pictures of it, where I could, see.
I think there's a batch of like 6 or 8 of them up there.
Whereabouts? Where do I look?
Is it in the About page?
I don't know. It's your website.
Let me open up the website.
All right, here I'm on About Our Company. In 2011, Midwest Model Railroad started with the idea of making. As of 2000, we are offering excellent prices. I'm scrolling.
Pictures are not on the About page.
No.
Hey, I want to throw one thing in here because you're kind of talking about the hand wringing and about the death of the hobby.
I was on the visit page.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, there's only 3 of them up there though.
All right.
About was this in May or June? I can't remember. May, I think. I was in Kansas City and actually stopped by the shop and visited for a little bit and picked up a couple of things. And that evening was the NMRA division monthly meeting in Kansas City, and I went to that. And at the division in Kansas City, there's always kind of 2 groups. There's kind of the group of the old NMRA guys who have been part of this division and the thing forever, and they are kind of what you would expect them to be, with the exception of Miles Hale. And then there's the group of the kind of new guys, who have not been in the NMRA too long, and they haven't been there long enough to get jaded. And I was kind of hanging around those guys. Of course, a lot of them know who I am for the YouTube channel and things. And I walked in and they were all talking about Midwest Model Railroad. A couple of them had been there that day. I must have just missed them. And they were talking about this great new, this great hobby shop. And they were just going on and on about it. I'm like, this is cool. This, here's a group of guys over here think the hobby's dying. And here's the guys over here that are proof that it's not. And they were in love with the store. So,
yeah. So I'm guessing from your comments that the ones who've been around long enough for what we would call the NMRA demographic, and the other ones were the ones who are watching your YouTube channel type age.
For the most part, yes.
Yeah.
With a couple of exceptions. Again, Miles Hale. I always like to throw that in there because Miles has been around a long time.
And totally wrong for
right.
What's going on. He does everything so right.
Exactly. Yeah. So, but other, apart from that, yes, pretty much that is true.
And it's been a long time since I've said it on the podcast, but I am in today's modern world. Miles Hale is what model railroading is about. He is so giving of information and everything else. Miles Hale is what the NMRA wanted to be. He is.
And he knows so much and shares. I'll tell a story that for years I've tried to figure out SketchUp, the 3D program.
Yeah,
I couldn't do anything. I tried to follow their tutorials, nothing. And then over on Train Masters TV, Miles had something up on how to use SketchUp. And in like 10 minutes, okay, boom, there it was.
It's funny that you mentioned that because that very night, Miles Hale was doing a clinic on SketchUp and 3D printing.
Perfect.
Yeah.
But yeah, he's he's done so much with the various things. He's a remarkable guy.
Yeah,
he really is. He is perfectly represents what the hobby wants to be. Okay, so Stephen, I'm going to beat this out of you if it kills me. One of us is not going to survive this night. Or this morning if you're listening to it on your way into Boston to work on to Boston, or if you're out in your barn in Robesonia working on your Reading Crossline Railroad, getting ready for Tomstock.
Or if you're in Switzerland heading for the hockey rink.
Yeah, or if you're in Switzerland and your name's Nick and you're heading for the hockey rink, nice one. Or if you're in Great Britain heading for your computer shop, your job, and you're thinking about being just a drone guy.
Yeah.
All over the place. Or if you're a flight attendant and you're doing a stop, you're doing an overnighter and you're looking for something to listen to.
And the Gold Coast of Australia.
Now we're on the Gold Coast of Australia. Yeah, but you're thinking of Martin Jenkins, aren't you?
Perhapsly.
Yeah, boy, he's annoying.
The wonder from down under.
Yeah, the wonder from down under. We have a lot of people in Australia that listen to us.
Yes.
So, Stephen, you're going to have to try really, really hard to get this story out because it's a great story. So, like, I'm looking at, and your 3 pictures are great. And I mean, I'm looking at the photo of the aisle stocked with the Walther's kits. They are Walther's kits, are they not?
Is that the one with all the blue boxes?
Yeah.
Those are Walther's kits.
Yeah, like, I mean, your store is really well stocked, too. What's... So, okay, let's say, because I kind of remember when I interviewed you before on episode...
Oh,
yes.
I bet you
I remember it well.
Yeah, I bet you little Mike Wachowski knows which number it was. I remember when we talked then, you weren't 100% sure that the brick and mortar thing was the way to go. So there's got to be a story in there, like you told the story about how your dad and your mom were running out of space. Like there's got to be a time when you guys collectively together were kind of going, holy smokes, what have we uncovered here? Does that make?
I think we were continually shocked by how many. I can absolutely say I'm shocked by the number of people that have come into the store. Now that the brick and mortar, there have been a ton of people who have shown up from literally within 5 miles of us that we had no idea existed.
Wow.
And so there's a lot of shock there.
Did we lose them?
No. I'm always impressed by where all we ship and what all is going out to all these different places.
Yeah. Yeah. And like when you say, like, are you getting a sense of what I'm always going on about, that this hobby is just like way bigger than anybody realizes?
It is. It really is, because I mean, even in an area like Kansas City, we're having people come into our store that are just happy there's a hobby shop again. I mean, there are hobby shops in Kansas City, but there's not really any on the east side of town.
Right.
So that they're happy that there's a hobby shop close by. And the biggest thing we get, and it's interesting because most of our sales are e-commerce, which means we pick them ourselves and we pack them and send them out the back door. The store has to be meticulously maintained and organized so that we can do that efficiently, which I didn't really know how well that was going to go over with the standard customer coming in, because not everything is on display. There's a lot of stuff that's sort of like filed in bins, but they can go and pull out an Osborne bin and look for, if Osborne makes it, there it is, starting at number 1001 through 1097, and then 3001 through 3097. There's a bin for each of them, and they can pull them out and they can thumb through them. But people are really embracing it. They love that it's organized. They love that they can come in and say, I need this, and we can walk them straight to it. Or we've had a bunch of people walk in and say, I was online. Here's my shopping cart from online. I'm going to look around the store. Can you pick this for me? Walk around, they'll walk around and look. I'll run around the store real quick and grab everything they need. I can be done in 3 minutes picking a few page order for them. And they spent 5 minutes looking around, checked out, and they got everything they needed, and they're out the door in 5 minutes.
Yeah.
Which is that best of both worlds, because you can buy it online, you can get exactly what you want, but you'll see it in a few days. You can go to most local hobby shops, search the store for what you want, get most of what you want, generally pay more for it because of the local hobby shop situation that they're in with rents and whatnot.
Right.
Maybe, but you'll have invested multiple hours in order to find it all in store in most of the stores that I've ever been in.
Right. Right.
And we, on the other hand, our store, I kind of think of our store as more of a service to the Kansas City area or anyone who wants to make the journey to it, because our prices are one of the best prices online you can find, on almost across the board on any of our products. And our prices in store are the same as online. It's just you can get it same day and get out the door.
Right. And I mean, your intention must be to make profit. I mean, that's why you're in business, to make some sort of profit.
Yeah. I mean, there's definitely a profit motive. I'm young. My normal career keeps me relatively busy and financially sound. So part of the reason that the store started when it did, or the shop started when it did in 2011, is retirement age was coming up for my father, and it seemed like maybe a good project for him to stay active past retirement. And it has worked out well in that way. But at the same time, that meant that I'm not actively looking to, we're not totally profit driven. Like, I've had multiple discussions with them. I'm the primary owner of the shop, and I've had multiple discussions because they look at it and say, well, it's your future. Like, what do you want to do with it? And honestly, like, at least for the time being and for the next handful of years minimum, I'm not interested in me personally running the hobby shop full time and making a full time living off of it, which means either A, profits go back into the company to help it grow, or B, I'm happy if the company makes a little bit of money and we're helping employ additional people in the area. Right.
Yeah. Okay. And the other, now see, this is a perfect example of what I was talking about, Bruce. Now I'm kind of mad at Steven, actually, because I realize as I'm talking to him, of course, we've talked to Chris Brimley lately, who is the vice president of Exactrail. And they have Train Life. That's another company that's opened a store that's doing very well, and they have Paley Solberg's layout in there. But Chris, runs that store, and And these guys have opened a store, and they started as an online business too. So I mean, it's kind of interesting how you said really what the store is a stock room that's open to the public. Is that a fair statement?
Yeah, and when I went back for the grand opening, I was standing there, and there was a guy that went to check out, and he was like, I can't believe this hasn't existed in the modeling community before. And I was like, what's that? And he said, really, you're kind of like a membership warehouse, so Sam's Clubs, Costco, BJ's, of model trains. We don't charge a membership fee, but you come in, you shop a warehouse style setup, you get your things and leave. So yeah, it's yeah.
So people can walk around the store, right?
Yeah, there's not anywhere in the store that is off limits.
Okay, with somebody else.
I want to say something in there about the customer experience there, having actually been in the store, and that is, I've been in a lot of hobby shops in a lot of different places around the country over the years. I've been in some really good ones. I've been in some really bad ones for a variety of reasons. But there's really only been one other that I've ever been in that was organized like that, like in a warehouse kind of a style or similar to that. And that was a shop down in the Dallas area. But it really makes it, if you go in looking for something specific, as Stephen was saying a while ago, it really makes it easy to find exactly what you're looking for. And if you're going in just to browse, it's still a good experience. You can go in and just find whatever you want. That organization just makes it a joy, to be able to go walk through, even as a customer. It's a fun place to go shop.
Yeah. So it's like, let's talk to you, Ron, about that, because you've been there. It's like I always say, and I think I've said this to Bruce, I mean, like the best shops are the ones you feel like you can't leave without buying something because it's so well stocked.
Yeah. Right.
And
yeah.
And is that the feeling you get from it? It's just like you have to walk up and down the aisle slowly because you're afraid you're going to miss something.
Yeah, I think that's very true. And of course, again, I'm an N-scale guy, and one of the wonderful marketing ploys that N-scalers have is the fact that most N-scale rolling stock and locomotives that you buy come in a clear jewel case. So even if they're stacked in warehouse style, you can see without even opening the box exactly what you're looking for. You go to the N-scale section there, and you just immediately have this overwhelming feeling of, okay, I'd kind of like one of everything, and that would be a lot because there's a lot there to have one of everything of. So
it's dangerous, is what you're saying.
Exactly, for the pocketbook.
Yeah.
So
I'm thinking next time I'm down at Kansas City, one of my suppliers will have to make the trip over to the east side of town to drop in
to Independence, Missouri, to see Midwest Mono Railroad. So okay. So how much of your now? You see, now I'm going to have to talk to Chris Brimley about this too. Now it's like, give me a break, you guys. Like I can't pack it all in. Rod Deary, he's out at work driving his grader somewhere about like 100 kilometers, 200 kilometers east of Perth, Perth, Australia. There's another guy. We have people all over the world listening to us. How cool is this? I hope everybody's enjoying it, because I certainly am.
Oh, yes.
So how much of your business then is, if you don't mind me asking, and obviously don't tell me anything you don't want to tell me, but it will, again, go against your score. How much of your business then is walk-in? And I got two questions. It's a two-parter. I have a question and then I have a follow-up. How much? Now I feel like I'm at the White House and I'm in the press corps. How much of your business is e-business, e-commerce, and how much more business do you have than I'm guessing you think you probably have more live business. What do you call business when it's actual people? What do you call, like if Ron walks into the store?
We call it walk-in.
Walk-in.
Okay, walk-in business. Yeah. So where are we at with those kind of ratios? Before you answer, I think that was like one of the worst questions I ever asked.
Well, the premise was good. It was the execution that was somewhat flawed.
Ron, I think you have absolutely no fear of me ever starting a YouTube channel. And I think little Mike Wachowski probably or Ostertag, they probably covered about 30 miles just waiting for me to say that question.
I don't know. I don't looking at your face might distract from the quality of the question.
Yeah. Wait,
Oh,
hey, yeah, wait a minute.
Ooh.
That sounded a lot more insulting than I meant for it.
Yeah. All
I
right.
don't know about that.
Yeah,
but
that was
hey,
like,
so,
yeah, holy mackerel. That was like, I think I saw that. You know what? That was an inside curve, and I just got out of the way. I'm looking back at the picture like, hey, buddy.
You're ready to charge them out.
Yeah,
Yeah, so look, I can't kick him out of the room, so it's up to you if you want to.
yeah. All right, Stephen, you're up now. So, do you remember my questions?
Yeah,
It's been like
I
about
do
a half
remember.
it's been about a half an hour.
It's about 90% online sales and about 10% walk-in.
Okay. And is it more walk-in than you expected?
It is substantially more walk-in than I expected. Mostly, I thought we were opening a warehouse that we'd have a couple people stop by and pick up their stuff, and very quickly we had regulars that were there at least once a week, if not multiple times a week.
Yeah, it's just a pleasant place to go.
That's good. It's always good when we get a crowd of regulars that are there, because that means sooner or later their buddies will show up, and then you'll have a bigger crowd of regulars. Let me ask a question. How much space would be available, let's say, if you wanted to do clinics or something like that in the shop to show people various aspects of model railroading?
We have about 300. It's 14 by 16, something like that, room that is sort of saved, 225 square feet.
Okay.
Sort of saved for clinics. There's a couple of workstations in there that people could sit down and work on a project if they wanted to, say, bring a locomotive in, and because they wanted potentially help installing a decoder, or just sort of maybe just wanted to work on something with someone nearby to say, hey, let me pick your brain about type situations.
And also a small operating layout, if I'm not mistaken.
Okay.
And a small operating layout with a few industries so that people can, it's a continuous loop, so it can run, or if somebody wanted to switch some industries, there's a couple industries there to play around with as well.
Yeah, it sounds more and more like a hobby shop south of us, Mr. Strang, in Mississauga.
Yeah, exactly. Credit Valley Hobby.
Credit Valley Railway, yes.
Credit Valley Railway. So I don't really buy this whole premise. Then it's just a warehouse. If you put space aside for, for clinics or a couple of tables for help people and how-tos, like you must have had that. How did you come up with that premise? Like, is it from all your experience of going to different hobby shops and things like that?
Yeah. So I don't know if I've said it in this one. When I traveled, I tried to go to a hobby shop in every town, and I would go around and I would see what it was that draw people to a hobby shop, to see the more popular ones, whatnot. And what I quickly learned, and mostly not from model railroading shops, but if I go to a town that didn't have a model railroad shop, I would just find a hobby shop and go to it. And I started ending up in it a lot of, not a lot, but the occasional games workshop shop.
Yes.
And those guys, I'd walk in there and I'd be like, all right, there's little figures around. And if I came in the middle of the day, maybe there was no one there. There was a group of like 3 people sitting there at the table. But occasionally I would go I'd go out on a Monday so I could actually be out in the evening. And I'd be in one of these shops, and all of a sudden 30 people would come in and swarm the 9 tables they have, and they'd sit there and play games for 6 hours. And I was like, okay, well, that's interesting. But I never like stuck around and watched. And then there was one day that I was in one, and I was walking past one of the gaming tables, and I heard one of the guys say, "Oh, that's cool. Where'd you get that?" And he goes, "Oh, it came out like 2 days ago." The entire table got up, went over, picked up the same thing, checked out, went and sat back down at the table, and I was like, holy crap.
Yeah.
There you go.
There's definitely something to this. You got to have people, you want to have people in store, regulars, to, they're there when the new things come out.
Yeah. Well, it's like. Go ahead, Bruce.
Sorry. No, it's like, seeing as he has space, have you thought of doing, around here at the local region, some of the train shows and stuff, the local region has a group of modelers who sit behind tables working on things, and whatever they're modeled or whatever they're doing working on, and the paying public can step up and ask questions and watch like that? Have you ever thought of doing something like that, having a few guys in working on projects and advertising it that, it's like they call it Craftsman Corner, and, come out and see what it's all about type thing?
We haven't. We know that we're going to start eventually offering clinics. We haven't really got to a position yet where we're fully ready. That the clinic room for a long time was the workshop,
Mm-hmm.
where we were modifying all the pegboard and whatnot to go on the walls. And just recently, it's gotten spiffed back up to become more of a clinic room, and we'll probably start some clinics in the fall, and then going forward from there, branch out into some other things for that space.
Hey,
right.
Hey, Bruce, can you move your microphone back a bit, like 1/64th of an inch from your mouth?
How's that?
That's fine. 1/64th of an inch.
I've moved to 3/64. Is that okay?
I think that's a bit too much. I think you should go no more than 2/64. What's that? 1/32nd.
130.
It would be. How about that?
Yeah, there you go. Perfect.
Can you hear me now? Can you hear me now?
Yeah, I can hear you now. Yeah, that's cool.
Can you hear me now?
Absolutely. Yep, absolutely. Okay, Okay, we've killed an hour. Thanks very much. And we've given me another
That went
job.
quick.
Yeah, and exactly. See, that's the problem with this. This is like worst. This is like the worst idea I ever had.
Yeah, sit around. Holy cow! It's like 3 hours. What happened?
I know, it's like the absolute worst idea I ever had was starting this podcast. Because it's like so many people to talk to and so much interesting stuff to talk about. So I want to, we're going to do, this is now an episode. I've decided this is just, will end up as an episode. I don't know what number, but it will probably come out before Christmas. So it'll probably come out in November or something like that. Because
should we add a little cheer and a golf clap in here now that's reached episode status?
Yeah, that's not a bad idea. Okay.
Oh man.
All right, everybody settle down. Please settle down. Okay, that's good. Because we're also going to be interviewing your interview is going to come out right around the same time. It's not far from Jason Tron's, just before Jason Tron of Rapido Trains. Man, I think this is just the most interesting subject, Ron. You got to help me here, buddy, because your experience is somewhat similar to Steve's with your YouTube channel. So I want to make sure I include what you've done as well, because I think the two things parallel. Stephen, do you think I'm interested in your thoughts about what Ron has done in the last 2 or 3 years and how it parallels what you and your dad have done.
His growing channel?
Yeah. No, is the fact that his hair's gotten grayer in the last 3 years.
That's
a lot thinner too.
Whoa! Holy mackerel!
You're not one to speak there, I don't think.
Yeah.
I don't have any hair. Mine is gone.
I think he just threw one at the mascot.
I have no hair left.
I'm soon going to be ejecting both of you guys from this game. Yeah, like just like you get again. This is another badly worded question. But I'm so.
No, go ahead. With the YouTube, you're reaching out to a bunch of people that the hobby is completely ignored for so many years and continues to ignore. There's an entire group of people that want to participate in this hobby. That any time that they have found a venue to participate in, they a lot of times don't feel welcome. We had a guy recently in Kansas City that contacted us. He said he saw the layout of the house on YouTube and was curious if it was a club or what the case was. And he said, no, but he's walking over and run. I started talking to him. He was upper 20s, I think. And he said he'd been to every club within an hour and a half of Kansas City. And every time he walked in the door, he didn't feel welcome. And he was just looking for a club to participate in, looking to be part of a group. And eventually he came back out to the house a half dozen or so times before I think he moved down to Dallas. But it's amazing that people of that age group, the same age group Ron has, I think, majority of his viewership in that 17 to 25, 17 to 35, can't feel welcome in this hobby, which is a shame. Aren't made to feel welcome.
And I can relate to that because I was right there myself. I mean, I first got into, I mean, I've been a train buff since I was a kid, but discovered model railroading as a hobby in my late 20s. And I had that exact same experience. I mean, I visited the local NRMRA division where I lived at the time, did not feel welcome. I checked out, there weren't a lot of, resources around, but a couple of clubs that I tried to make some contact with and did not get, a welcoming kind of response. And thus ended up being basically a lone wolf for like 20 years just because, I finally did, lived in another smaller town where there were some model railroaders and made some connections with some individuals there, which was good. But yeah, I can totally relate to that. And that was a big part of why I started the YouTube channel, was because I found it way too hard to break into the hobby when I was, younger. And regardless of the age, I know there are a lot of guys out there who are interested in model railroading who maybe haven't done a lot of model building or modeling or operating or whatever, and who just feel intimidated. And I was like, man, I want to do what I can to try to give them some resources and a community, even if it's a virtual one, where they can feel like they're a part of the hobby in a social way rather than just, hiding out in their basement somewhere.
Yeah, and like I mean, you've been kind of staggered by the amount of growth you have. Really.
Well, I was like you. I've heard you say it many times, and I was kind of the same way. I thought about starting the channel. I thought it looked like a fun thing to do. I really had no idea that anybody would ever watch it.
Yeah.
And I was astounded, in the first 3 or 4 months. I was 2 months in, and I had 500 subscribers. I'm like, for 500 people who want to watch this, it's awesome. But I was honestly shocked by it. I'm still amazed by it.
Yeah, and I mean, the fact that, okay, you and I are reaching out to people via social media, your YouTube channel and my podcast, but you take those two things and then you look over here at Steven and he's done e-commerce, and like I cannot see anything other than this hobby just growing like crazy over the next 20 years. Like I don't understand how it couldn't.
Yeah, I think another thing that helps, and this is just kind of a different place where I think the hobby is, at least a segment of the hobby right now, and that is when we start coming to a place where we feel like it's our desire to help feed and grow the hobby, and so therefore we're not in competition with one another, but we're helping one another. I see that in places on YouTube, I see it, and in places I see the opposite of that. But where I see that idea of, okay, let's help work together to grow this thing, that really pays incredible dividends. And I'll mention this. Steven, again, Midwest Model Railroad has sponsored my contest for the past couple of years, which I appreciate. Other than that, I don't have any kind of sponsorship with them. I know the Atwells and I like them. I like their store. I think they're doing a great job with the store. And so I'm glad to promote them from time to time because that's where I do, the biggest part of my model railroad shopping right now. And, I filmed a segment up there and Stephen, as you talk about getting some clinics and things going, I'd love to come up and just film a whole episode of Ron Strange and Things in the clinic room there. And, maybe help publicize that a little bit as you get ready to get that started. I think it'd be cool to do. I think it would benefit both of us. It'd just be fun.
Yeah. It's like, I don't know. I feel like a complete nitwit here because I know what I want to say, and I just don't. And Bruce, you know what I want to say, and it's just like I feel like I can't get it out because it's like this is crazy. I mean,
it's everything we've talked about. Is that the fact that we've got guys doing it backwards, which is totally wrong, because you're never supposed to start mail order and go to brick and mortar, because that will never work. Because every time you mail order, the brick and mortar store dies and kittens are killed and things like that. And then we got there's no young people in the hobby, despite the fact that Ron's got a channel that's got a good percentage of subscribers who would be considered to be young people in the hobby. And Steve said the same thing. He's noticed about the people he sees around the store and things like that. That the hobby, not to disappoint all the people, the hobby's not dying. It's not going anywhere. There's more going on in the hobby right now than we ever possibly believe. We've got examples of it right here. And, don't believe the naysayers. It's not there. This hobby is strong and growing. We just don't see it in what would be called the traditional forms, but it's alive and well. And it's, you look at all the great products out now, it's only going to get bigger.
Yeah. So, Stephen, what do you sell a lot of kits and parts and pieces or kits and the tools to make kits and that sort of stuff?
We sell a ton of structure kits. We don't sell as many of the, like Bowser just came out with a line of H21 through H23 hoppers in both kit form and finished form. And while the finished form sells, the kits stick around substantially longer.
Right.
But the people who like to buy kits, we sell. I mean, AccuRail kits are real easy to put together. They're very basic. But you're not getting any other piece of rolling stock. I can get an AccuRail 4750 hopper at Midwest for $15, $16, something like that.
Right.
You're not finding another piece of rolling stock of that quality anywhere else on the market for less than
Okay,
$20.
now here's something we've had a discussion amongst the guys is, okay, I come in and buy the AccuRail kit. Now, do you also have to detail parts there if I wanted to upgrade my kit with individual grab irons and that
We sure
type of thing? So I can pick up the kit and all the detail parts to kick it up a notch and come up with a real good-looking model by one-stop shopping.
Yep.
If there was a guy that had a YouTube channel that was making like kind of how-to videos, that would be kind of a great kind of maybe 2 or 3 part thing where he buys an AccuRail kit and then he has adds some detail parts to make it, more of a better model for your layout.
That's not a bad idea.
If we only knew somebody.
Yeah.
What if there's a guy out there doing that kind of thing?
Yeah. And the other thing is, the only thing I would say is if the guy thought it was a good idea and he did it, I would hope he would at least give us a mention while he was like,
give a little credit.
Yeah. While he was gluing his finger to his eyelid. Hey.
Yeah, promotional shout out to ML for this wonderful idea.
Yeah, exactly. So, okay, so you're selling. So it's not just because that's another hue and cry of older. I don't know who these people are. They're always complaining, but they're always saying the only thing people are buying is ready to run stuff. So that's not true either. More people are buying more ready to run stuff, but that's not the only case.
Yeah. I mean, it's really difficult to say everyone's only buying ready to run because people don't want to spend $50 to $100 on a piece of rolling stock.
Yeah.
Every piece of rolling stock on your layout, provided your layout is moving, you're not going to see a ton of those details while it's moving anyways.
Yeah.
Alan McClellan's 3-foot rule.
Yeah, exactly. And DCC, where are you at on that? Like, what's do you sell? Electronics is a big part of the hobby now. Like, people really enjoy installing the lights and all that. Where are you at with DCC? Like, are you selling a lot of DCC stuff?
We do. We sell quite a bit of DCC stuff. I'm shocked by the number of systems that we continue to sell. I continue to think, the market is saturated with systems. Like, people have bought the systems by now. The same systems have been out for 10 years. Like, yeah, and yet, we sell a ton of power cabs. We sell a ton of Digitrack Zephyrs. We sell a ton of, we sell a lot more of even the larger systems than I thought we would. We sell, I would have never thought that we would sell like the Digitrax Evo system with the regularity that we do sell it. I figured it's more of a, spread out thing, but when the price is right and we can get it to people cheap, I guess our market's a lot bigger.
Right. Yeah. And decoders, you sell decoders and all that stuff. Do you do installs? Like now you said earlier, I passed over that. I wanted to, so do you guys do any like physical work for people, like fixing locomotives and that sort of thing?
To an extent. We don't publicize that we do it all the time, but when somebody comes in and asks, we'll work on a project for someone. We don't have sort of a repair bay set up, so it's more of a as time comes and if we can get it done, we're happy to do it for people. And right now it's sort of just to keep the customer happy more so than anything else. We're not charging them to do it if it's something simple.
Right.
But for install stuff, there's a gentleman in Kansas City that that we use to do if we we discussed installs, and he'd be happy to take on any projects that if somebody comes to us and wants to do a bunch of installs or some installs, he'll take care of it for us, and we just work it out through that.
And this person's name would be, are we not allowed to say the person's name?
No, it's Shane Mason.
Yeah, Shane Mason, Shane the Young Gun Mason. Our very own Shane Mason is your go-to guy for installs for Model Railroad, Midwest Model Railroad. How about that?
Yeah, and he also has a YouTube channel. Brakeman 17.
Brakeman 17. He's no Ron Marsh though.
But I've had Shane do some work for me as well. He does good work.
There you go, Shane Mason, buddy. Okay, and he's also don't quote me on this. Do not quote me on this because I will get it wrong. I think he is an assistant editor of Model Railroad News.
Yes, he is.
I think that's what the wording is, assistant editor of Model Railroad News, which of course is the editor of that is our very own Tony Cook. And
yeah, we're happy to actually see Tony and Shane about once a week.
Really?
Well, there you go.
Yeah.
Oh, that's cool.
They sort of do a hobby shop Saturday, and I would say 3 out of 4 weekends it seems like we see Tony and Shane in store.
So they're your two regulars.
Yeah.
I think he's got a lot more regulars than that. So what are some of the interesting places I don't think this is too personal of a question to ask, and if it is, answer it anyways.
Love that.
So how do you and your dad interact? Like, okay, you and your dad must stay in constant contact pretty much every day. So how do you guys what does he rely on you to do? Because you're in New York City, you're living, on Broadway, just off Broadway and 108th, I think you said, and you're riding the A train every day most days to work. Whose song is that? The A Train.
Duke Ellington.
And then of course Rod Stewart has the Downtown Train, which is also a great song. Who's your favorite? Let's do 15 minutes on Broadway tunes.
as we digress.
Yeah. I listen to this sometimes and I'm thinking to myself, who is listening to this? So yeah,
Mike Wachowski, take a picture right now.
Yeah, little Mike Wachowski, right now, wherever you are, take a picture. So how do you and your dad interact to get to make this work? I mean, just give us a brief synopsis of, okay, your dad calls you up and says, we're selling a lot of X locomotive. Does he order this stuff or do you order this stuff?
So I do all of the business side of the company, and my father does sort of the warehouse management / I guess now shop side of the company. So on a standard day, if an order comes in, he and John will count in the order, and I'll get a text message that says, microengineering order number ... either all here or missing XYZ. And then I'll take care of updating all of our inventory and paying all of our vendors. Most products I track every single thing. Every single day I get a report from our software that gives me a report of every single item is sold. So I go through, I take care of all of the ordering, all of the reordering, all of the new product order, all the ordering in general, I take care of. If there's something that a customer comes in and says, hey, could you get me this, or will you ever be carrying this in store, something like that. If it's a smaller thing, or just a few of something, not like an entire brand, as long as it's just a few things or not an entire brand, something that we're not adding a bunch to our store, he'll just add it to whichever distributor cart that comes from, so that when I go to reorder, there'll be a handful of line items at the top that he will have added. And generally, at some point when we talk on the phone, he'll say, "Oh, I added XYZ to the online order." So when you submit that, those actually need to be ordered. And then stuff that we order that comes in that's difficult for me to track. So like when we sell paint, because we buy paint by the half dozen.
Right.
So like, oh, I'm buying Tamiya XF1. Well, I buy it by the half dozen. So I sort of ignore those when they come through on my reports. And then he says, then I'll get a list once every couple of weeks that says, we need to restock these paints. So there's a bunch of stuff that I will get lists from him. Paints are the big one. Intermountain wheel sets, stuff like that, where I'm ordering it by the case. He'll let me know when we're getting low quantities. But everything else I deal with, and it's all. I've added a bunch of computer automation to make the process substantially faster and easier for me.
And is there something that surprised you that sold considerably better than you thought?
We sell more Intermountain wheel sets than I ever thought anyone needed.
Because they're awesome.
Yeah.
Was that Ron?
We sell. Yeah.
Ron, you spoke.
I did. I said this because they're fantastic. They're awesome.
They're that
good.
Yeah,
we go through 4,800 on average HO scale 33-inch wheel sets a month.
Really?
4,800?
4,800.
Like
that's a lot. That's a lot of wheels.
Like 4, 8, and 2 zeros.
Yeah.
Like half of 10,000.
Yep.
Like enough for 1,200 cars.
It's like 1,200 cars. Yeah.
Jeez.
To the same guy?
No. we do have repeat customers that are like. There was one that came up and I was like, hey, I'd sent him an email and I was like, I noticed you've ordered like 7 boxes of, cases of 100 wheel sets. I was like, curiosity got the better of me. Like, what are you doing? And he said, well, he's got a collection of stuff from an entire life, and part of his retirement is changing them all out to metal wheel sets.
Wow.
Okay.
What's going to happen when all those guys get caught up on that? That's
I don't know if anybody will ever get caught up. So, how many wheel sets? Like 4,800. Like, so how often do you buy them?
I order at least once a month, if not once every other week. But I mean, generally I order about 3,600 of the 33-inch and another 1,200 of the. I generally order 4,800 wheel sets at a time. 3,600 33-inch and 1,200 of the 36-inch. But yeah, 4,800 wheel sets a month.
I'm struggling to see this. I'm picturing like that's a pile of wheels.
This is going to sound like an offhanded insult, and I apologize in advance. Do you have any idea what you're doing here? I mean, this is like, I don't think you have any. do you have do you have any concept of what you've done? Like, it just is, to me, it just blows me away what you've accomplished. Doesn't that, Ron? Give me an honest answer. You and I are good enough friends now that I can demand an honest answer about this question. Does it not seem like Stephen has no idea of what he's accomplished?
I think it defies, all logic and reason, because hobby shops are dying, and he's selling 4,800 wheel sets a month.
Yeah. Again, he's doing it all wrong.
Right. He's doing it all wrong.
Yeah. Yeah. And he stars in the hit musical Hamilton on Broadway. That's, I guess, why I wanted to talk to you and how we ended up talking. It's cool, Stephen, you and I have become friends and we text back and forth and all that stuff. But I mean, hats off to you, man. Like, hats off to you. Like, wow, pretty cool. It's the same. That's why I wanted you on here, Ron, too. It's like both of you two clowns. Now I see you. Now I'm talking like the microphone's not on. You guys have any idea what you've accomplished here? Bruce, do these guys have any idea what they've accomplished?
I think they have an idea, but it's probably not hit them full on in the head yet.
Yeah. It's like I got to come down and give you... It's like you guys are teenagers in the basement. I got to come down and give you a stern talking to because you're making too much noise.
It's funny. I was at the shop a few weeks ago while my father and mother went on vacation, and it was after the shop had closed, and I was kind of wandering around. We had gotten a large Atlas shipment in, I think, and I was putting it all on the shelves. And at one point, it came across because one of the big things about the company was like I never wanted the company to be in debt, mostly because there's cost of being in debt, and
Right.
then those costs have to be passed on to the customer, so it doesn't make any sense to be in debt. So we've maintained debt free, and I was walking around the shop and I'm putting stuff on the shelves, and I was like, "Holy crap! I own all of this." Like,
Yeah. Yeah.
like what? Like there's I could have bought a nice house, but instead I own all of this.
Yeah.
Like, what?
Yeah. But it's an accomplishment. I guess the thing that I find the most rewarding about the podcast, and I think this is what social media has done, and e-commerce has done with. I think the thing I find the most rewarding is that it impacts people. Like Bruce and I constantly get. We know that it's making people feel better. We know that they enjoy to listen. They enjoy listening to it. Like it makes me feel good. Like it makes me want to do it more because it means something to people. I've told this story 100,000 times, and I'll tell it 1,000,000 times again. Is like the first person that made me realize that this was having an impact was our friend Stuart Sterling, who was a UPS driver who drove from Anchorage, Alaska, halfway to Fairbanks every night on his route, hauling UPS trailers. And he would send messages about he's just listening to this podcast. And I would say to my son, there's a guy in Alaska driving through the middle of the night listening to my podcast, So, I mean, it's like, Ron, okay, you've got your YouTube channel and Stephen, your store, but I mean, it's having an impact on people. Like, do you get that sense? Like, you must get that sense now, Stephen, more because you've got a store where people can walk in.
Yeah, it's interesting to think. I went and visited Bill Graham yesterday down in Staten Island, and we went out to lunch. And on the way back from lunch, he says to me, we're going to go into the layout room, and everything in that layout room came from your shop.
Yeah.
I was like, holy, like everything in that room at one point was, he said, at one point was yours, meaning that I owned it all. But it's funny because everything in that room at one point was literally in the house I grew up in.
Yeah, pass through the process that you and your dad have created.
Yeah.
Wow. Well, okay, Ron, I want you to answer that question too.
Well, I was just kind of scrolling through because I was trying to find a comment that I had just gotten in the last day or so, and I can't find it immediately. But this last couple of weeks, I've done a couple of videos on a bridge project, and it wasn't a real intense project. It was a simple kit. I put it together and I added a few details. I did a little weathering. I modified some abutments. It was a nice little project, and I had two people who commented, both of them on both videos, and said, thank you, because I've been wanting to do a project just like this, or was just getting ready to do a project just like this, and I had some questions, some things I wasn't sure how to go about, and your video, showed me exactly what I needed to know. And I remember, I still sometimes I'm in, I have things that aren't my forte, and I go to do something, I'm like, I have no idea how to do this. And then usually I film it, and people laugh at me, but. But just being able to say, hey, here's a guy who, it's a hobby, but it's how he gets enjoyment, it's how he relaxes, and he was a little stressed because he wanted to do something he didn't know how, and by sharing a 10-minute video, I was able to help a guy do something that brought relaxation and enjoyment to his life. That means a lot. That's a cool thing.
Yeah, it really is. It really is cool.
And also, I'll go back to the idea that. Maybe the most amazing thing to me is the fact that literally, like you said earlier, Lionel, people literally watch my videos from all over the world. I mean, yes, 85% of my views are in the US, the UK, Canada, Australia, English speaking, but I've got people that watch and watch regularly, and the Netherlands and Germany and Finland and Denmark and South America, and I'm just like, that is mind boggling to me.
Yeah, like we just had our AML picnic
Yeah.
a couple of weeks ago in Rochelle, Illinois, and I mean we had 25, 30 people there, and like a fella Nick Carlson came from, what's the hockey team he's, Bruce? You're better at that than I am. Bruce is
Hello?
on,
Sorry. I was
Bruce,
on mute.
Bruce is on mute. Are you wearing your shirt?
No, actually, I'm not.
Do you remember the name? Nick, you're gonna have to tell me that name 100,000 times. It's a town about 200 kilometers from Zurich in Switzerland, and he's the equipment manager. But he can't.
Yeah, he was. It starts with an L.
It does. LUN. It's not. Anyway, sorry, Nick. But the point is, he came to our picnic from Switzerland, and I'm standing there talking to him, and I'm saying, okay, so you tour in, North America. This is, you just happen to be. And he basically said, no, I came for the picnic.
Flew halfway around the world to have a hot dog.
Yeah, spend 2 days with us because we did 2 days. We did a tour of Chicago and stuff, and we also had Peter Borchert, who came all the way from Great Britain primarily for the same reason. And I went home and people were saying, so how'd it go? And all I could say was, there was a guy from Switzerland there.
Lugano.
Yeah.
Lugano, thank you.
Lugano.
And then I would say, and that made the guy that came from Great Britain, it looked like, I was like, yeah, well, he just came from England.
He just came across the street,
Yeah.
It's like the responsibility, and I understand, Stephen, that you're in retail and blah blah blah, and it's not the same thing. But the biggest point of this, and again, now I want to keep mentioning Chris Brimley and Train Life because they've tried to be the same as you. They've tried very much to be customer orientated, and Chris works hard at that. And like the reason I wanted to talk to you, and I'm so glad you sent me the video about let's talk about how a local news station did a story about you. But the reason I wanted to talk to you is because you're going so much against the stream. Like everybody's just, like I say, wringing their hands and closing up, and you guys are going, no, like you guys are going in the opposite direction.
We hear from people all the time that brick and mortar is dead and whatnot. And had we gone the more traditional route where we tried to open a brick and mortar store, we would have never made it. We would have had to close shop. But if you don't look at, like, we need a space. We need a space that we can set up. And while, yes, we could fit more stuff into a space that we had solely for employees only and nothing on display and very much everything warehoused in that style, yeah, we could fit more stuff in there, but it's a great service to the community and a great service to the hobby for people to be able to come in and look at stuff and hold stuff in their hand and actually look at and participate before it arriving on their doorstep.
I think I think I figured out the words that I wanted to use. I think I understand what it is I want to say, and then we'll come to the end of this. And Ron, I really want you to comment on this. Everybody that's in the hobby likes the hobby, doesn't want it to go away. They like the community. They like the friends they've made. They like it to be part of their life, and they don't want it to go away. And what's happening, what I see, what I was trying to say is we're keeping the community glued together. It feels like we're keeping the community glued together.
Yeah, I think that's definitely true. And, I definitely see that on the YouTube channel and other model railroad YouTube channels. And for fear of insulting somebody, I'll say this: there are a number of YouTube channels in the model railroad world right now that really what they are doing more than anything else is community building. They're using a lot of live stream stuff, and not a lot of content, just a lot of community. And there are people out there that are looking for content, and that's, my goal is to give them content. But there are a lot of people that gravitate even towards those that are just, hey, we're just a bunch of model railroaders. We got that in common, so we're just going to kind of get online and hang out together, because people like to just be able to talk around this hobby that they have as a common interest. But they're looking for community. They're looking for people to connect with that have the same interests that they do.
Yeah, yeah. All right, just give us a brief description of what happened with the TV station, Stephen.
Yeah, so the TV station. I got a phone call from my father on a Tuesday afternoon. He said, "Hey, how much is free publicity worth?" I said, "Oh, God." And I didn't say anything. I was like, "What?" And all I'm thinking is, "Oh crap! What's he have in mind now?" And he said he'd gotten a phone call from Fox 4, and they wanted to come out and do a story on a company that was moving from internet sales to brick and mortar, because it went against everything that anybody tells anybody right now. It's not just model trains. It's no one's opening brick and mortar and anything. Everybody's closing up and going internet only. And they wanted to come out and do a news story. And it turns out that one of the cameramen at Fox 4 had heard about our store and from multiple people, and is a model railroader, intends to start a layout at some point, had intended to come out at some point and look around, but he was talking about it at work. And one of the reporters overheard it and said, "Wait, did you say there's a company that went from internet to in-person sales?" He said, "Yeah." And they said, "We got to do a story on that." And so they contacted us and showed up on Friday, and
that's cool.
Yeah,
that's again the model where I think that's what we're doing is we're making people feel better. I'm going to use this example only because I think it makes sense. You guys know about my history with cancer. I was diagnosed with stage 4 cancer, and somehow I managed to make it through that war. And people, it inspires people that I have made it to where I made it, and I really struggled with that for quite a while. And then I started to realize, it became my job to be inspiration for these people, because they were struggling, and if they see somebody that can make it, then maybe they can make it. And it's the same thing, Ron. It's like, these YouTube videos and everything. It's like, it's just, it makes people feel like, well, no, we're not losing this model railroad community. It's going to survive. It's going to keep going because we like to do it. People like to do it. They like to be part of it.
Yeah, I think that's definitely true, and they like somebody that they can connect with, and the traditional hobby press, you see, people who write and who appear in those magazines, but they feel very inaccessible to you, and the things that are happening with YouTube, with social media, the podcast here, all of a sudden, what was once inaccessible, which was that model railroad community, is not only accessible, but it's as close as your laptop or your phone.
Yeah, and I think the reason I wanted to have this discussion with Stephen is because, it's so exciting that this has happened. So let's just close up with this one thing, Stephen. So you were Ron, just give me a description again of you were. During the Tonys, you were in contact with Stephen because he was at a party to do with the Tony Awards in New York.
I had been actually texting with my daughter, who was in theater, and she was watching the Tonys, and there was a particular show, I believe it was Once on This Island. Is that right, Stephen?
Yeah.
That won the Tony that year for the best revival, and she knew that Stephen had worked on that show, and I knew that, so she texted me and said, "Hey, Once on This Island just won a Tony," and so I texted Steve and said, "Hey, I just heard this," and he said, "Yeah, I'm at the Tony party right now." and so because of model railroading, I texted my way into a Tony party.
Right. So I think, Ron, both you and I, and Bruce, I'd like your opinion on this. I think for the listeners out there, I think everybody would probably agree that Stephen is fairly well established in the Broadway industry, in the live theater industry in New York City. Is that not? Would that not be a fair statement?
Seems that way to me.
Bruce? Bruce is on mute.
I'd say so.
Were you on mute? Bruce is on mute again.
No,
Are you sleeping?
I'm not on mute. What are you
Okay,
talking about?
all right. Well, do you agree with me that Stephen seems fairly...
I said yes.
Yeah, but you seemed very cautious.
No, I just thinking that the fact that he's in lighting, we haven't talked to him how to use that in the model roadway. But
Well, we did that in. If
that'd
you
be-
ever
that'd be-
listen to
that'd
this
be a
show,
whole other podcast.
yeah, that's another whole podcast, and I think we
Yeah, I
talked to him about that. So a simple yes or no. Does he seem like he's fairly well established in the?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, exactly.
Yes.
So Stephen,
Yes.
would it be that hard for you to get me some sort of a part in a play?
I will look into it on the next one.
Okay. Like, it doesn't have to be a big part. Like, maybe 3-4 lines.
Well, you have been on TV.
Exactly. Well, and I've been on.
Practice.
I've even been on. Was even interviewed by Ron Marsh for his YouTube channel.
That's true.
Yeah. So I mean, I have a, so you can go and see what I like. I can send you a tape. I can send you a VHS tape. So yeah. So seriously, Stephen, if you see a part come up that's half a dozen lines or something like that for an old guy, I don't think it'd be that hard for you to get me in. Do you think he's
I'll work on it.
okay? Do you think he's serious, Ron?
I'm going to plead the fifth on that one.
Okay. Okay. So, Bruce, can you give out our email address?
Yes. Our email address.
Wait a minute. What is going on with
Life.
you? What is going on with you all of a sudden? In the last 10 minutes, it's like, are you watching TV now again? Is this like the bottom of the ninth in the Blue Jays game?
It's a baseball game.
Yeah, something. He's watching something. I can tell. He's doing what do you call those goofy puzzles in the? He's doing crossword puzzle or something.
No crosswords.
But he's doing Sudoku. Yeah, he's doing something. I
can't even figure out Sudoku,
all right.
and it's only the bottom of the sixth. Yes. Our email address, if you want to send your comments our way, Modeler's Life, that's Modelers with one L, modelerslife@gmail.com.
And we have a website, modelerslife.com. If you go there, you can find out all sorts of stuff about our podcast, and we have crew pictures and the latest, the most recent interviews, and all kinds of stuff is on there. And okay, Bruce, which one of these guys do you think can handle the end?
Let's go with Broadway Steve.
How often do you? I'm assuming you've listened to all of our podcasts and some of them twice.
I've got a long time on the subway to listen to them every morning.
Okay.
Oh, there you go.
So you're going to handle the very end then.
I got this one.
Okay. So remember,
we've heard that before.
Yeah. Oh, so now what is that? Is it commercial now or something? So remember, a Modeler's Life podcast is considered marginally adequate by 6 out of 10.
Oh, we're doing this one? This is not what I thought we were doing.
Oh yeah, you know what? He's right.
Yeah.
This is
He
the
is
wrong
right.
episode.
No, you're right.
No,
You have single-handedly saved the show because it is an episode. Oh my goodness gracious! What a man! I can hardly wait till this is like a professional show. Boy,
we need more practice.
yeah, boy. It's someday when we grow up and people it's like a real show. How cool is that going to be?
I said, who's going to host that?
Now that
Another high hard one.
Yeah.
How much fun would that be?
Holy mackerel! Come on, will you? For crying out loud!
I love you, Lionel.
Yeah. Too late now, buddy. The damage is done. Okay. Are you ready, Stephen?
I'm ready.
So as the sun slowly sets over the back 40 and we close the barn doors, there's nothing else left to do. That's wrong because I have to say, well, Stephen. Well, Stephen, as the sun slowly sets over the back 40 and we close the barn doors, there's nothing else left to do except for you to say...
Happy rails to you.
I just found the document.
Do you want to do it again?
Yeah, now I can actually read it. I was pretty close though. Well,
Modeler's Life outro, take 2.
Yeah, no, we'll leave all this. Again, thank you, Ron, for that. I'm not going to sleep tonight now.
I'm sorry.
Yeah. When are you going to stop practicing on your YouTube channel and actually put out the good ones?
That's a good question.
Well, Stephen, as we close the barn doors on another episode of A Modeler's Life and the sun slowly sets over the back 40, I guess there's nothing else left to do except for you to say,
happy rails to you.
While in Busted Knuckle, guests of A Modeler's Life podcast stay at the Casa del Sol Motor Court and Inn, where late-night dancing at the Rumba Room is a magical event to be experienced.
It's another Lincoln Homer.